Welcome back to the Deep Dive, your ultimate shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we're diving into a really interesting stack of sources. We'll pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge for you. This deep dive is definitely custom-tailored for you, the learner, especially if you're a UPSC aspirant keeping up with daily current affairs. We're breaking down the key developments from June 26, 2025. This is part 1. And just a quick note, some of these topics might be a bit of a revision for you, which is always good, but others, well, they'll bring entirely new perspectives.
Absolutely. Our goal here is to go beyond just the headlines. We want to help you understand not just what happened, but crucially why it matters, and how it all connects, to the broader picture of India's policy, its global progress. We'll look at economic shifts, defense changes, digital governance. Quite a mix today.
Right, let's get started then. First up, a significant move from the Reserve Bank of India. They've issued a new rule under Section 22(1) of the Banking Regulation Act in 1949. It changes things for small finance banks, or SFBs. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. What's the background here with this priority sector lending?
Right, so PSL, priority sector lending. It's a framework that's actually been around since the 1970s. The basic idea is it mandates banks to lend a certain percentage of their adjusted net bank credit, or ANBC, to sectors considered crucial for development. Think agriculture, MSMEs, education, housing, renewable energy, things like that. And it applies to various types of banks, including these small finance banks.
And as I recall, SFBs had a pretty high target, didn't they? Something like 75% of their ANBC had to go to these PSL sectors?
Exactly, 75%. That was the previous rule. But the new rule, which kicks in from the financial year 2025-26, changes that. The total PSL requirement for SFBs is now reduced to 60% of their ANBC. Now, here's the important detail. 40% is still mandatory for those core PSL sectors, but the remaining 20%, that's now flexible. And crucially, it can be used for non-PSL secured loans. That's the shift. Before, even the flexible part generally had to stay within PSL categories.
Okay, 60% total with 20% flexible for non-PSL secured loans. So what does this actually mean on the ground for these SFBs and, for the financial system more broadly?
Well, practically speaking, this change is estimated to free up something like 40,000 crore for SFBs. That's capital they can now potentially lend to low-risk secured segments. Things like loans against property LAP or even personal loans. This directly helps the SFBs to, diversify their loan books.
Diversify away from just microfinance, which has been their traditional focus.
Precisely. Microfinance can carry higher risks. So diversifying into secured loans reduces their overall risk profile. And this, interestingly, aligns pretty well with the original idea behind SFBs. Remember, they were set up after the 2014-15 budget to boost financial inclusion, provide savings options, and credit to underserved groups like small businesses and farmers.
Right. Registered under the Companies Act, licensed under the Banking Regulation Act?
Exactly. Minimum paid-up capital of 200 crore. So this move, while lowering the headline PSL number, arguably helps them become more stable and sustainable, which, in the long run, might even help them serve more people.
Interesting. Okay, let's shift gears now to governance. There's a new NITI Aayog report out titled India's Data Imperative, the Pivot Towards Quality. It points out that while India's done great on building digital public infrastructure, the plumbing, the next big step has to be about focusing on the quality of the data flowing through it.
That's a very critical point. The report actually lays out 6 core attributes that define what quality data even means: accuracy, completeness, timeliness, consistency, validity, and uniqueness.
6 attributes. Okay. So why is this data quality so vital for governance, especially thinking about you, the listener, interacting with government services, maybe through UPI or Aadhaar platforms? This seems fundamental.
It really is fundamental for several reasons. Firstly, high-quality data just makes digital governance work better. Think efficient platforms like UPI and Aadhaar. They rely on accurate data for smooth service delivery. Secondly, it prevents wastage. The report actually estimates that errors or duplicate entries in data can inflate welfare budgets by about 4 to 7% every year. That's a huge amount of money.
4 to 7% annually. Wow.
Yeah, it adds up. And maybe most importantly, quality data builds public trust. If data is poor, you get incorrect targeting of benefits, delays, frustration for citizens. Good data avoids that.
Makes sense. So what are the big hurdles India faces in actually getting and using this quality data effectively? The report must highlight some challenges.
Oh, it does. Several key ones. Faulty data capture is a big one. Sometimes field programs prioritize just getting the data in quickly, maybe aiming for only 80% accuracy, which isn't really good enough. Then there's fragmented data storage, Lots of systems use older databases, often without proper audit trails. Sharing data between departments is also inconsistent.
Siloed data, basically.
Exactly. Silos, different formats, different update schedules makes integration slow and costly. And finally, core archival practices. Old, irrelevant data just clutters systems, slows them down, and increases the risk of data leaks.
So it's a mix of technical and maybe procedural issues.
And cultural, too, I'd say. Getting everyone to prioritize quality from the start.
Okay, so faced with these challenges, does the report offer any solutions, any tools or frameworks?
Yes, thankfully. It introduces a couple of key tools. One is a data quality scorecard, basically a way to measure and track the quality of data sets over time. And the other is a data quality maturity framework. This is more comprehensive, with 7 dimensions, things like data governance, standards, validation controls, quality monitoring, interoperability, and crucially, culture and capacity building. It has 5 levels of maturity to help departments see where they are and how to improve.
A framework for improvement. Good. Okay, let's pivot again, this time to defense reforms. A major development here. The defense minister has authorized the Chief of Defense Staff, the CDS, to issue joint orders for the Army, Navy, and Air Force. This replaces the old way of separate orders from each service chief. How big a step is this towards jointness and integration?
This is a very significant step. Jointness, means using the resources of all 3 services together synergistically, while still respecting their unique strengths. The goal is optimum results, avoiding duplication. It's seen as a crucial prerequisite for creating integrated theater commands down the line. And in fact, jointness is one of the 9 priority areas identified for defense reforms in 2025, which has been declared the year of reforms.
The year of reforms, right.
So this move aims to streamline procedures, cut redundancies, and really boost coordination between the services.
And this isn't happening in isolation, is it? What other steps have we seen recently aimed at fostering this kind of jointness?
No, it's part of a broader push. We've seen proposals for theatrization, including integrated theater commands, or ITCs, and also integrated battle groups, IBGs. These are designed to improve operational readiness. There are also the new Inter-Services Organizations Rules 2025, which aim to ensure effective command and control in joint setups.
And the CDS role itself, of course.
The very appointment of the CDS was mandated to bring about jointness in operations, logistics, training, support services, communications, repairs, maintenance, the whole gamut. Plus, the creation of the Department of Military Affairs, the DMA, under the Defense Ministry with the CDS as its secretary. And we already have some existing joint commands like the Andaman and Nicobar Command and the Strategic Forces Command handling nuclear assets.
Okay, a clear trend towards integration. Now let's shift focus to international development. India's rank has improved in the 2025 Sustainable Development Report, the SDR. We're up to 99th from 109th last year. Finland topped the list, by the way.
That's correct. The SDR this year themed Financing Sustainable Development to 2030 and Mid-Century tracks global progress on the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. It's put out annually by the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, or UNSDSN. That network was launched back in 2012 to mobilize scientific expertise for the SDGs and also the Paris Climate Agreement.
And the SDGs themselves, just as a quick refresher.
Right, the 17 global goals set by the UN in 2015. They're part of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, building on the earlier Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs.
So India's rank is up, which is positive. But what about the global picture? The report must have some key findings there. Are we, as a planet, on track for 2030?
Well, the report shows strong commitment globally. 190 out of 193 countries have national action plans. That's good. However, the really big and frankly quite sobering finding is that none of the 17 SDGs are currently on track to be achieved by the 2030 deadline.
None of them. Wow.
None. Progress is being hampered significantly by conflicts, by various structural vulnerabilities in economies, and by limited fiscal space, especially in developing nations. The report also notes that high-income countries have unfortunately been slow in providing capital support to multilateral development banks, which creates a shortfall for SDG efforts globally. It also interestingly mentions Barbados ranks highest in supporting UN multilateralism, while the U.S. ranks last on that specific metric.
A challenging global picture indeed. Okay, just a couple of quick hits on India's international engagements before we move on.
Yes, 2 notable ones. Firstly, the Prime Minister visited Cyprus. This was significant as it was the first such visit in 23 years, signaling renewed engagement. And secondly, India and South Africa signed agreements recently on submarine cooperation. This happened during their 9th Joint Defense Committee meeting held in South Africa.
South Africa, a key partner in Africa.
Absolutely. A key strategic partner. They have those multiple capitals, Pretoria, Cape Town, Bloemfontein, rich in resources like gold and chromite, too. This defense cooperation is strategically important.
Right. Now let's turn to a social and cultural commemoration. It marks a century since a very important conversation in 1925 between Sri Narayana Guru and Mahatma Gandhi at Sivagiri Mutt. This centenary celebration brings focus to their discussions on topics like the Vaikom Satyagraha, nonviolence, abolishing untouchability, and uplifting the downtrodden.
Sri Narayana Guru, who lived from 1856 to 1928, was a truly pivotal figure, a saint, philosopher, social reformer from Kerala, born into the Yazava community. He led a very powerful movement against the caste system. He founded the Sri Narayana Dharma Paripulana Yogam, the SNDP Yogam, and his philosophical works, like Atmapadesa Satakam, are still incredibly relevant and studied today.
A century later, what aspects of his teachings really stand out as relevant for today's society?
Well, his core philosophy of one caste, one religion, one God remains profoundly relevant, doesn't it? For equality, social justice, fighting bias. He actively supported movements like the Vaikom Satyagraha for temple entry rights. His emphasis on universal brotherhood is also key for religious harmony, pushing back against radicalization. And it's interesting to compare his approach to compassion with Gandhi's ahimsa. While Gandhi saw compassion as one important virtue among many, gurus, coming from an Advaita Vedanta perspective, saw compassion as the essential virtue. It wasn't just one duty, it encompassed all duties, including nonviolence. As he wrote in Atmapadesa Satakam, whatever one does for the happiness of oneself should cause happiness to others. It's a deeply integrated view of ethics and spirituality.
That's a powerful thought. Okay, and another milestone. The Estimates Committee of Parliament has completed 75 years.
Yes, a significant anniversary for parliamentary oversight. The Estimates Committee is actually the largest of the three main financial committees, the others being the Committee on Public Undertakings and the Public Accounts Committee. It was set up in 1950. It has 30 members, all elected for the Lok Sabha. Importantly, ministers can't be members. Their term is 1 year.
And its main job, scrutinizing government spending.
Essentially, yes. Its functions include reporting on potential economies, suggesting ways to improve organization and efficiency, suggesting alternative policies to bring about efficiency in administration. They also review expenditures in relation to the policy implied and recommend how the estimates should be presented to Parliament. Their reports go to the Lok Sabha, and the ministry involved has to report back on action taken within 6 months. It's a key tool for financial accountability.
Good to know. Now, some positive news on digital connectivity. Gujarat has become the first state to implement the amended Bharatnet program ABP using a state-led model.
Right. Bharatnet, as you know, was launched originally to get broadband to all Gram Panchayats. The ABP, approved in 2023, is sort of an enhanced version. It aims to extend optical fiber, or OF, connectivity to around 2.64 lakh Gram Panchayats using a ring topology network for better reliability. It also plans to connect remaining non-GP villages on demand.
And the specifics. What kind of service?
Key features include using an IP MPLS network, which is robust. It includes 10 years of operation and maintenance in the plan and guarantees a minimum download speed of 25 Mbps for each home connection, each FTTH subscriber. The last mile part will use the Bharatnet Udyami model.
Okay, expanding connectivity. Good. Now let's wrap up with our quick fire round. Also in news, just hitting the highlights of other key developments.
Okay, first, black mass recovery technology. The Technology Development Board, TDB, is funding the commercialization of an indigenous tech for battery recycling. It uses dual-mode black mass recovery. Black mass, that's the powder from used lithium-ion batteries, rich in lithium, cobalt, nickel. This tech gets really high recovery rates, 97–99%, vital for a circular economy.
Definitely needed. What's next?
Epigenetic programming. We mentioned scientists in China produce fertile mice from 2 male parents using DNA editing. This advances epigenetic programming. Epigenetics itself is fascinating. It's about heritable changes in how genes work without changing the DNA sequence itself. Modifications attached to DNA affecting activity.
Okay, pushing boundaries there. Next.
Yeah. Critical and Emerging Technologies Index. This was launched by Harvard Kennedy School. It looks at 25 countries across 5 tech sectors: AI, biotech, semiconductors, space, quantum. Key finding for India? It lags behind the top 3, US, China, Europe, in most areas, especially semiconductors. Highlights areas needing focus.
A bit of a reality check there. Keep going.
Navy YA Initiative. This is a new vocational training scheme for adolescent girls aged 16–18. It's a joint effort by the Skill Development and Women and Child Development Ministries. Uses PMKVY 4.0.
The aim is employment and entrepreneurship, looking beyond traditional roles like graphic designer, drone assembly expert. It's targeting 27 aspirational districts initially.
Empowering young women with future skills. Good. 2 more.
Danson. The Madhya Pradesh High Court denied permission for religious cultural activities at Hazrat Sheikh Mohammed Gause's tomb in Gwalior. This tomb complex also holds the grave of the legendary musician Tansen. Tansen, born Ram Tanu, was one of Akbar's Navaratnas, famous for ragas like Mian Ki Malhar. The court case highlights heritage site management issues.
Right, complex issues there. And the last one.
Emergency Procurement, EP. The Defense Ministry just concluded its 6th phase of contracts under this EP mechanism. This was brought in after events like the 2016 surgical strikes and the 2020 Ladakh standoff for faster defense buying. It lets the armed forces use up to 15% of their capital budget for urgent buys weapons, equipment to boost situational awareness, lethality, mobility, protection for troops. It's about operational readiness.
Got it. Wow. Okay, that was quite a deep dive today. We've covered a lot from financial rule changes and data quality to major defense reforms and global development goals, plus those cultural and scientific updates.
Yes, a wide range.
Yeah.
We really hope this comprehensive overview gives you, especially if you're preparing for the UPSC exams, that clear structure and those memorable details you need. Understanding how these different pieces connect is so important. It's not just for exams, really, but for grasping the bigger picture of India's journey.
Absolutely. And speaking of connections, as you reflect on everything we've discussed, here's maybe a thought to chew on. How might these seemingly separate things, relaxing lending norms for SFBs, really pushing for better data quality and governance, and enhancing military integration through things like joint orders, how might they collectively influence India's long-term economic stability and its national security posture?
That's a great question. What are the potential synergies or even tensions when you look at these policy shifts, not in isolation, but as parts of a perhaps larger evolving national strategy?
Exactly. Something to ponder. We certainly hope you found this deep dive insightful. We enjoyed bringing it to you. If you did find it useful, please do consider liking and subscribing so you don't miss our daily deep dives. We will be back tomorrow with part 2.